Hey everybody, James here, and I am sat with Callum.
I'm Callum.
He is a painter, and he has painted this miniature.
I did.
Which must mean it's Monday and Miniature Monday.
It's Miniature Monday.
So yeah, you're going to tell us a bit about this today and how you went about painting it.
I am. So this is the Dagon model from Crooked Dice. It is a 5-part resin model. It went together really nicely, only minor gap filling with a bit of milliput I did, and it's on an MDF base here.
And he's a big boy. So what was the kind of the vibe that you were going for with this paint scheme? What were you trying to achieve?
Right, so I wanted really kind of a pallid skin to it. I still wanted the green that you'd associate with Cthulhu or that kind of Lovecraftian element, but I really wanted kind of the idea of a beautiful monster, horrifyingly beautiful in essence,
yeah,
and almost decaying slightly with kind of pallid skin. There's a lot of cracks on the model which are really nicely sculpted, you know, like peeling flesh. So I really wanted to lay into that with some reds, some purples, tones, like bruised kind of skin feel to it.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting look. The figure itself is cool.
It's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. I absolutely love the sculpt.
Yeah, it's weird to see it because it looks very nice, but it also does look very horrible.
It's horrendous, and I really enjoyed trying to get that across. A lot of models you see are quite clean and nice, and so for this one it was really fun. I've really wanted to make them look like open sores and scabs. So it was a deep red purple ink dropped into those. And it's the same underneath on the kind of undertones, the shadows and that. It's a very purple, subtly kind of worked in there. It's contrasts nicely with that green. On the green itself, it's like a very light green, and then it actually blends up to a human skin tone, like a light kind of Kislev flesh or amber skin from Army Painter.
Sure.
And then we go to bone for like the sharper highlights, and that kind of desaturated it. It gave it that kind of thin skin that I was kind of going for.
Yeah, and I think the really interesting thing is that there's some very stark contrast in some of the transitions between the very light points straight to the purple there, like you can see it on the knee area here.
Yeah, it was honestly a benefit of a really fantastic sculpt. It was very easy to visualize how light would be hitting the kind of folds in this skin. So it became very simple of highlighting that very high up and then the shadow underneath, but it's not noticeable because of that kind of sculpt. And the placement of those highlights. It was really a real joy to do this one.
So it is a large figure. There's a lot of texture and surface detail on the body parts of it and on the arms and legs. But then across the top of the head and cresting to the back of the figure, you've got these scales that you've done a really interesting treatment on. How did you go about doing that?
Yeah, so for that I really wanted to draw that beautifully horrendous kind of look. So with these, the scales were a metallic. So I used thrash metal from scale 75, thinned down, and almost painted in sharp lines coming towards the edge of the scales. I left the recesses the dark purple green kind of combo. Just to give it a bit of depth, so I didn't really have to do too many washes. From that point we'd had all the metal across. I then started adding some thinned down inks. So I had a blue, a purple, a red and a yellow, and I just mixed those in varying quantities. So I had a few oranges, a few greens, and I just basically applied those thinly so they weren't overflowing, so it was just a thin coat to tint the kind of sheen. I still wanted that in there. And then at the very end I just gave it a quick satin varnish to kind of matte down the shine a little bit, so it still had that hint, but it didn't draw your eye too far away from the skin. I really wanted it to be bright and kind of have that almost like faded from glory kind of bright approach to contrast with quite a simple skin colour, you know.
Yeah, for sure. It's like the Third Age elves in The Lord of the Rings.
Exactly, yes, a little bit of that, yeah.
Kind of autumnal if autumn was under the sea.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
Well, it was, yeah, you're right, with the oranges to contrast with the green. There was a lot of fun colour theory to get into this model, just because, as you say, it's so large. In fact, to be honest, talking of contrast, the idea around the face was to have kind of saturated bright, so the mouth wanted to be really strong, kind of pink purple tone. The eyes are obviously a bright yellow orange.
Yeah, they really do stand out.
I wanted them to be striking, just because it's encircled by these almost like, I don't know if it's skin or scales, but I decided to make it skin. I thought the scales at those bits might draw your eye a bit too much away from that as a focal point.
Yeah, it works well because you've still got that interest just starting to tease what you then get on the back of the figure.
Yes, absolutely.
So the main figure itself, all completed and done now.
Yep.
The basing, you've still got a little bit of finishing to do, and we're going to do that on camera.
Yes, I've gone for a basic kind of grey to kind of match Crooked Dice's line. However, I think there's a bit more visual interest we could get around the feet, I think.
Yeah, just to make it feel like it's more in a place.
In a present rather than just, you know, there's no shadow or anything. It's kind of just floating almost on the base that we've got currently. So I just want to kind of tie him in a little more.
Yeah, so we'll flip to you in your studio, starting to do a bit of painting. We'll get Joe to record that, and then we'll come back.
Yeah, sounds excellent.
Okay, so we've got what looks like a really good figure already, back on the painting table. What is it you're up to here, Callum?
So every miniature painter knows that a model is never really finished. I would like to try and tie this model into the base a little more. So I'm actually going to start using some speed paints through the airbrush to try and touch the feet, make a bit of shadow, bit of contrast, something interesting on the base that, you know, elevates it a little more. So we're going to start here with some Hive Dweller Purple. So I'm going to pop that into my airbrush here.
Perfect. Yeah, so you've got that in there. You're mixing a little bit of water in just to make it less saturated.
To be honest, this is for my own comfort because I'm a little nervous going into this. I don't want to really blast the foot and make it too purple. So with a little water, I know I can dial it up, but we know the initial coat is not going to be too intense.
Sure. And the purple's a really safe choice as well because it mimics the colour in the shadows on the figure.
Absolutely.
So you're not going too abstract. Not using black either.
So yeah, we're not using black because it doesn't really add anything. It just tones down a model. I think in shadows it's much more interesting to have some kind of colour. So we're going to start with this purple here. I'm going to focus it around the foot here. I'm going to start nice and steady, quite close. I'm almost feathering it and I'm pulling away as I'm airbrushing just to make sure I don't concentrate a spot too much.
Yeah, it's a very subtle effect. You're not wanting it to really catch the eye, you just want it to be this extra layer of, oh, that feels right.
Exactly, when you look closer you might notice it, but also as a whole piece you don't necessarily see it. I'm also going to touch around the hand as well. I just want a subtle shadow because it's obviously not touching the base,
but it's close.
It's hovering close. So I'm going to focus around there, and then I'm also obviously just going to do the other foot as well.
Yep, so you've just teased that on, and it's giving it more of a sense of place within the environment.
I think we can push it a little further though. So what we're going to do now is we're going to bring in some magic blue from the speed paint range.
Yeah, so mix a bit of that in with the purple.
Yes, and using this we're going to make some of the shadows even deeper. So we're just going to focus this on certain areas, so we're just doing around the toes, the back of the foot, not the entire area. We don't want to sandblast where we've already done our previous purples, but just increase that depth in some areas.
And I think now that you've done the feet areas, it's maybe made that grey that's around the edges look a little bit more monotone.
Yes, I think in fact it's had an almost opposite effect. So what we're now going to do is just take magic blue on its own, thin it down a little bit with some water, and we're going to draw it out to the edges. We're going to select some patches, some open spaces, so there's here at the front, in front of the hand. We've got around the foot here as well. And it just, these touches, I'm being very careful. In fact, I don't think I've gone intense enough here, so I'm going to come back. This is the benefit of adding that water, is you can always add, you can't take away, but you can always add to it. So we're going to do that again here.
And just as a traditionally messy painter, I will add, you can't take away, but if you're really quick, you can rub your finger across the top and actually take a little bit away before it dries. Well, I think it's very subtle, but it looks really good. It's just giving it that slightly more atmospheric feel.
Absolutely. I'm really pleased with the outcome of this. I was nervous going into it, but you know, I think it's added a lot to it. So that's the Dagon model from Crooked Dice. I had a real blast painting this one. All the different skins, the textures, the scales. I think there's a lot covered that's, you know, quite unique to this model, I would say. I hope you really enjoyed and found some use out of the basing the model, you know, grounding it within the base itself. I'm going to be doing a lot more instructional videos in the future, so subscribe and comment to let us know what something you would like to see. That's been us. I'm Callum, you're James. I've said it for you. See you later, guys.
This video has been brought to you by Wi Prime, Wargames Illustrated magazine's online members club. View more videos or find out more about Wi Prime by following these links.